Hi everyone. I am super excited to have with me today a very dear friend, a classmate from business school, Amit Garg, who is managing partner at Tau Ventures, joining us from California at a quick email request. And he was very prompt in responding and very quickly, in his most sweetest, kindest fashion, as always, agreed to do this interview. So, Amit, thank you for always being accessible, reliable. Just you're like my 4 a.m. friend without even being in the same country as me. So thank you. Thank you for always saying yes to anything I've ever asked you for. It's really
Uh,
a hallmark quality you have.
back at you, Vibha. Thank you. Also, 4 a.m. for you is 4 p.m. for me, so makes it really easy.
So what for both of us sounds good. This sounds like a good deal to have lifelong, both ways. All right. So, Amit, thank you so much for doing this. And as you know, this book is about the future of work. Really excited to get your insights given the wide expanse of industries you have seen and worked in. Just to set the context before we jump into specific questions, if you could just run us through your early years educationally, as well as your last 15 to 20 years professionally, what all have you seen so we know from what lens you will be seeing this interview, please?
Sure, sure. Thanks for having me, Vibha. It's a pleasure and an honor uh, to be part of your latest project. In my story, I guess if you're asking for the last 20 years, I studied computer science and biology for my undergrad. I've always been passionate about the intersection of life sciences and technology. Um, I studied to be a physician actually, and here in the U.S. You go for the equivalent of your MBBS, which is called an MD here, after doing your bachelor's, after doing your undergraduate degree. I decided to go for a master's also at the intersection of those two fields. It's effectively what you would call health AI today, and I almost went to medical school after that, but I also had an offer to join Google, and this is Google long time ago when it was still a private company, much smaller than what it is today. And I made what was a difficult choice, but one that I'm happy, very happy about, which is to go into that world. Um, Ended up joining Google and having an incredible journey there. By the time I left, I think the figure is 97, maybe 98% of the people had come after me. So it was a time of explosive growth. And I can share more about some of the projects I worked on and some of the things that I saw, if that makes sense. And that's where you and I crossed paths, Vibha, after that. So went to business school. We were the same year. And business school for me was an unexpected decision, to be honest. I am a very technically trained person. I'm an engineer and a scientist by training, and I had zero clue about what business is. Some would say still today, and no, that's a joke. But I really, really didn't have as much exposure or breadth at that point in time. And I think business school for me was transformational, if I can use that word, because it really showed me all the other industries and all the other ways of solving problems that are out there. Um, there's commonalities in how you can solve a particular problem, and there's different ways in which you can solve the same problem. So it created a knowledge bank in my head, besides an incredible network of people that I'm in touch, very much so, and I probably will be, till the end of my days. After business school, I was deciding between starting my own company and joining one, and I had set my search primarily for startups. Um, Almost did my own startup, but I ended up being recruited into venture capital. And I can tell that story in more detail if it makes sense. But I ended up joining a big VC fund here in Silicon Valley. And I joined with the idea of staying there for 2 years, um, learn more about how investments are done, learn more about how startups are built from the other side of the table, with the idea of then going and building my own startup, which is exactly what I did. I became a co-founder of a company thereafter, joined hands with some incredible folks. Most of the credit to them, but the company ended up raising hundreds of millions of dollars and becoming
What
quite
sector
big.
is the company in? What were you doing?
It's called Health IQ, and I was a co-founder. And as a co-founder, you end up doing everything, honestly. But I focus especially on product.
Okay,
Um,
what was the company doing? What was the business model?
it has changed over time, but you can think of it as a way for you to take better decisions around diet and fitness, and the business model is around insurance.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but at the high level, that's what it is. Um, and I ended up going back into venture capital thereafter. Ex-colleague of mine convinced me to join them, and I went there with the idea of gaining more experience, making more investments, really learning more about the industry. Um, and as I spent more time there, the idea of starting my own fund matured in my head, and that's what I do today. So I ended up starting Tau Ventures just over 4 years ago now. My co-founder is an ex-colleague of mine. He and I matured this idea for almost 10 years. And today with Tau, we focus on AI investments. That's our thesis from the very start. Before AI became this big buzzword, um, we fully expected it to become a buzzword, but it became actually bigger and quicker than we expected. Um, I do the digital health side, and Sanjay, who's my co-founder, does the enterprise side. Today, we have just over $86 million that we're managing. We have done 57 deals. Um, very proud of how the fund has performed. We've had 6 exits. I can share more of the numbers here if you're curious. But the goal here is to invest in companies that really make a difference. Computer vision to detect cancer, machine learning for drug discovery, machine learning to detect fraud, waste, and abuse in healthcare payments. These are all real examples of our portfolio. So if you look at the trajectory here of my just about 20 years of career, um, I've bounced around in some ways. I've gone here and I've gone there, but the common theme has been um, to be able to do something at this intersection of life sciences and technology. And I feel very happy of the intersection that I've created for myself. The goal is to continue doing this for the rest of my life. I get to talk to amazing people, work with some amazing founders, and I'm paid to learn. I'm constantly being exposed to new ideas, and in some way, shape, or form, I'm able to promote innovation and I'm able to create value and valuation. I think there is a way for you to work at the overlap, to do good and to do well.
Great. Okay. So you're a doctor, come scientist, come innovator, come
I'm
investor.
not a doctor. I could have become one, but I decided not to.
You did pre-med though. You finished the
I
pre.
did. I did. I got into medical school.
Okay. All right. Cool. Awesome. So you built this expertise in the intersection of healthcare and technology, with a vast range of experience. And I was looking onto your LinkedIn profile, and it looks like you've invested in a lot of, um, so to speak, future-ready businesses or futuristic businesses, which I'd love to dig into along the conversation. So wherever you can, do share with us, as we progress, specific companies that you've looked into and what you're seeing as evolving business models. So along that train of thought, as we think about this book, and we think about this topic of future of work, why do you think it's even necessary, and from your lens? And obviously this question is kind of, from an investor perspective, kind of obvious, but why look into the future, and why even think about the future? Why is it important for people to think about this narrative?
Well, we're living in exponential times, and I'm sure you have heard this from other people, Vibha, but um, the rate of change that we are living through right now is higher than any other generation before us, and this is only going to accelerate. Um, it used to be that you would do a job and you would do it for life, and maybe you would progress through a particular company. That is no longer true. At least in Silicon Valley, you're holding 7 or 8 positions on average during your lifetime.
Mm.
You have to constantly learn, but also unlearn and relearn. Uh, there's new technologies that come to play, and if you don't keep pace with it, you will get left behind. So I'll take AI as an example. AI is, in my view, as transformational, perhaps even more so than what the internet was. Um, and if you think about how the internet has changed our lives, right? Like most of us in our 40s did not grow up with the internet. We were still maybe the last generation to write essays by hand and to be able to look up on a book and an encyclopedia. And somewhere in the 90s and early 2000s, we all moved over to using computers and using the World Wide Web. And I cannot imagine today in 2023 in a world without cell phones and without the internet. Like I challenge anybody to consider that
And
the life without it.
you think AI is going to take over that force now? You think AI is going to be all pervasive, just the way the internet is like? It's
That's
like water.
exactly it. That's exactly it. AI, we are seeing the early innings right now of, if you think about what the internet did, AI is going to do the same, if not more. Because AI is, in my view, a horizontal. It's infused in all kinds of industries. Whether you're doing manufacturing, AI is going to help make the processes quicker and better. Whether you're looking at healthcare, it's going to help doctors come up with better diagnoses. Whether you look at B2B companies, meaning companies that are working with other companies, enterprise, classic enterprise, whether it's payments, whether it's billing, whether it's workflow management. In all of these different areas, AI is a tool, it's a very powerful tool for 10x improvements, whether it makes things faster, whether it makes things cheaper, or whether it makes things better. Um, and I don't think the humans are able to keep up overall with the pace of technological change right now unless we put time and effort into it. It's not like the knowledge and these new techniques are going to come to us by osmosis naturally because they're going to happen in the next 100 years. No, 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 no. This is going to happen in the next 10 years, maybe even quicker than that. So it's, if anybody wants to continue progressing their career, it's absolutely vital for you to not only think about where the puck, to use the
Where
hockey
the puck
analogy, where
is
the puck is
pointing.
today, but where the puck is going.
Yeah.
Um, if you resist this change, you will get left behind. If you embrace it, if you adopt it, you can become much better.
Okay.
And there are going to be segments of the population that are going to um, not be disrupted, to use that term from Silicon Valley. They are going to get left behind. And I think that's a whole another topic that we can chat about. But I think it's very critical for us to make sure that AI doesn't exacerbate um,
That so
classism, right? Divisions between
we'll get to
society.
that towards the end of like whether this is what sort of
Yeah,
threats this is posing. If you're saying it's going to be all over, I mean, and you generally these, as I said, initially that these terms are very loosely thrown around. Everyone, AI and ML have become like if people talk about it and just like one brother, oh, AI ML, without really understanding the implications, really without this statement I'm hearing a lot. But since you have a more direct worldview, since you've actually put your money where your mouth is and invested in companies that are using AI as their core technology, could you actually explain to us or share with us examples of, how are you seeing these technologies come into play in the real world? You said enterprise, you said finance, you said everything, but like, can you substantiate this for us so that we understand what you're
sure,
saying?
sure, sure, sure. Well, I'm a computer scientist first and foremost, so let me define what AI is. AI is nothing new. AI has been, under this modern definition, been around for 60 years. This is also not the first time that AI has come to the forefront. There's been at least two other periods of time where people thought AI was going to take off. Um, this one is real. The reason for that is fundamentally because we have more data, we have more computational power, we have uh, better frameworks, regulatory frameworks, we have a higher number of people who are open to adopting technology. So there's many, many reasons that have come together. Just like for cell phones, like cell phones became pervasive when the cost of components fell down and the cost of manufacturing them became much easier. But cell phones have been around for 50, 60 years too, actually, in some ways. Um,
So you're saying the
so
forces are now aligned, and this time around you think
correct.
it's going to happen. Okay.
It's not only going to happen, it is happening. It is
It is.
happening in a huge way.
Okay.
And the fundamental difference at a high level is that what AI has been able to achieve now is, in the past, you had to create rules and you had to create frameworks and you had to structure the data in order for AI to work. Now you've created ways in which you can do unsupervised learning. You have large language models, you have deep learning, you have reinforcement learning, you have I can go very technical here, but at the high level, what this means is there's enough intelligence in the machine for it to make sense of massive amounts of data.
Okay.
You don't need to teach it as much. You don't need to handhold it as much. It's able to actually extract insights and give it to you in a fashion which is usable. So AI has moved from being something that PhDs in computer science could do to something that just anybody who's smart enough, who has just enough technical training, can apply.
Okay.
Basically, we have built up the layers of the stack so that now you don't need to recreate the whole thing. You can just take what has been built and apply it to solve problems. And I'll
It's
give you a
like
very specific example.
kind of like open source where you had like a lot of these modules built and then you could go borrow from a library.
I think that's a good analogy. Yeah, I think it's a good analogy. The one big difference is that open source implies that it's open, right? It is available to everyone. And AI, you also have many proprietary models. You have big companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon who have proprietary. There's also open source, but AI is living through a moment right now where there's a pre-Cambrian explosion. There's
Okay.
so much out there, and that is the sign that some of it will stick for the long term, not everything, but that's always what happens in a burgeoning industry when there's a huge change happening. But let me give a very specific example of it, just to illustrate this. Um, this happened to be coincidentally our very first investment officially through Tau Ventures. At the time, this company was using computer vision to detect colon cancer. More specifically, if you have polyps in your intestine, it's very hard to detect them. You can't use MRI or X-rays to detect them easily. You have to do a colonoscopy, and it's an invasive process. And a colonoscopy, even then, you miss out on those polyps. They're very small. They're hidden in the folds of your intestine. To put it at a high level, 25% of the time, even the best physician might not be able to see them. And that's very bad, unfortunately. If you don't detect a cancer early enough, you may not be able to treat it. And if you're not able to treat it, then that is literally the difference between saving a life or not. These guys out of Boston, the founder was an MIT dropout, a doctor who had gone to MBA and dropped out of MBA, has had figured out how to take the data in real time from a video feed and put it through algorithms that he had improved and was able to get detection at 99%. I'm simplifying things a little bit here, but that's what he was able to accomplish, and that's incredible. So we took part in the seed, and a lot of VCs at the time didn't. In fact, we were the only VCs in the US who took that bet. I think one of the two actually, and part of it is because people hesitate about healthcare. They think healthcare is hard, it's regulated, it's hard to build a business. And I actually have the opposite view. I think it's now it, parts of healthcare, like digital health specifically, they operate just like software. They have the same cadence of um, being able to build and sell a product, just like other areas of software. So we took that bet. We helped them raise more money. We helped them get more contracts. And today, this company has been able to raise $200 million. It's worth, not all these numbers are, the numbers are not public, so I can't share with you, but you can take my word for it. It's incredible, incredible company.
So the
Um,
technology is now proprietary to them, or they are this is an open technology, or the value lies in the technology that they've built.
well, yes and no. They are leveraging a lot of technology that has been built by others,
Mhm.
and they have added to on top of it. And what they have added on top is obviously their own. And that is actually the key insight here. Where AI is today doesn't mean you have to go and build everything yourself. It's just like a computer. Like 50 years ago, if you wanted to use a computer, you would have to build the computer. You would have to take vacuum tubes and put them together in a big room and then put through tape and hope for an answer.
Where do you think this is going? If this
Today
is
we can use it ourselves.
today, you can use it yourself. What's going to happen 15 years from now? Where do you see this
So
going?
look, anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen is conjecturing. We tend to underestimate what will happen in the long term and overestimate what will happen in the short term. For me, long term is 10 years or more.
Sure.
How the world looks in 15 years may be drastically different than what it is today. Um, think about 15 years ago. Did you expect every single human being, not every single human being, but almost a majority of human beings walking with a device in their hands that is more powerful than the device that we use to send people to the moon, right? The iPhones and Androids, cell phones today are more powerful than what we used, the computers we built to send humans to the moon about 60 years ago, right? Um, so that has happened in the last 15 years, really. If you think about the iPhone having really launched in 2007, 2008, today is the 15-year mark for that. So what the world looks in 15 years, it could look very, very, very different. I'm willing to hypothesize that what will happen is technology is going to get embedded so much more in our lives, and it's going to be more and more seamless in some ways. You think about being able to talk to an Alexa in your house and being able to use voice as a prompt to be able to interact with an intelligence. And that intelligence, maybe it's a personal digital assistant that can help you with scheduling your calendar, whether it's your personal calendar or your professional calendar, helping you with your work, helping you with even grocery deliveries or getting food or making reservation at a restaurant or being able to interface with your healthcare, reminding you about appointments, reminding you about medications, and alerting you, hey, your parents live in a different city and this is what they've been up to, and maybe you should take care, like your dad is going through a little bit of a arrhythmia, and this is the signals to noise that I can help extract. Like there's going to be much, much more intelligence to our devices. Today, many of our devices are very powerful, but I have to use them. I have to use the laptop. I have to use the computer. I have to use the iPad. But we're going to move more and more to a world where our devices will do things the way we want them to do for us, freeing us up to think at an even higher level, to be able to do things at a higher level. There is a future that I envision, and it's up to us to guide towards that future, where technology is serving us in such a way that we create a better society, that we create a more equitable society, where we have more disposable time, where we can actually pursue even more creative and scientific endeavors, where we can actually have better lives by working less. There is a future that we could build like that. There is an alternative future where we accentuate social differences and economic divides, and we have a few people with a lot of money and a lot of people who are struggling to meet their ends meet. So if we look back, this I can be sure of, if we look back 15 years from now, we will look back at today as being the inflection point where we could have made decisions to take us to either one of these realities.
Okay. Okay, and I want to dig deeper into the the divergent viewpoints and the divergent realities that we might have a little bit towards the end. That question is going to come. I really like the example you shared about like the company and how they detected this colon cancer, etc. Any other companies that you're seeing, if so, so we can get some more real world
Sure,
implications.
absolutely. I'll give you another one. This first company that I mentioned is called Iterative Health.
Okay.
They're based out of Boston. They do have people in many other countries, including in India. Um, and let me give you another example. It's called Banjo Health. And this is a company officially out of Washington, D.C. That's where the CEO sits. And they're focused on the problem of pre-auth. And pre-auth is a complicated word, but it basically means authorizing clinical procedures. So it is perhaps in some ways unique to the US, but the concept is not unique. The concept is when you go and get approved for an MRI or for a surgery, your insurance has to go ahead and say, okay, Amit is allowed the surgery at this cost with this doctor at this time. I say yes, 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 and I'm willing to pay for it. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of paperwork going on, tons of paperwork going back and forth, back and forth. And the way this is done here in the US is unfortunately extremely manual, extremely old school. So you have lots and lots of people who are not being paid well, who are going through this paperwork, and it creates inefficiencies in terms of for the patient, for the provider meaning the doctor, for the payer, which means the insurance, for the
Sure.
pharma company, which is the one providing the drugs.
Sure. It's a
It's
lot
a
of
lose 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 lose. So what Banjo is doing is saying, look, I'm going to automate this. I'm going to make it much easier to ingest the data, to approve the data, to get the right approvals in the hands of the right people at the right time. And I may not be able to do it 100%, but I will automate 90% of it. And that's also another key insight is that AI may replace humans in some ways. But I think what AI will do in a bigger way, at least in the short term, is augment. You will still have a human being involved, a human in the loop, but a lot of the grunt work will be done by a machine to the point that the human is now 10x more efficient. Um, that's what Banjo is doing. So this is a company that can automate paperwork. And just to give the magnitude of the issue, in the US, we are spending about $4.3 trillion in healthcare. By itself, it's bigger than almost every economy in the world. It's tragic to me because we're spending so much money with not necessarily the best outcomes.
But
And
how is
about one
there
third of that is
how is
paperwork, is
AI how is
administrative
AI
costs.
I still don't understand the example. How are they using AI to solve for this?
I see. Let me give you a little bit more depth. So think about I have an approval for an MRI coming through. I put AI through this and I can match with other approvals and I can figure out based on, okay, these are 10 other cases where this got approved out of the thousands of cases I've seen. So my AI can say, okay, yes, ready to go. And by the way, not only that, I can create documents using perhaps large language models, generative AI at its finest, right? I will create the documents so that instead of a human being having to transcribe things, having to copy things, literally doing grunt work, the machine will come up with, okay, based on everything I've seen, this is the result. Here you go.
Okay, okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so and you're seeing this in many, many, many such examples and cases.
Well, we're an AI first fund, so I'll give you my numbers, Vibha. We look at 5,000 deals right now per year. We end up investing in 10 to 12. It's about half in healthcare, digital health specifically, and about half in enterprise. That's what our fund does. Um, so everything we invest in has to have a measure of AI. And once again, it's applied AI. I'm not looking for companies that are building algorithms. I'm companies that are using those algorithms, perhaps developed by other people, and adding to it,
Okay, so now
applying them to solve problems and adding to it.
what it's sounding like, and just from a layman's perspective, this is it's almost sounding out of reach. It's sounding like it's a bunch of people who either have access to this technology and these technology stacks. You need the access. Maybe you're saying, hey, it's open access, but if you want to further build on this, it looks like you're going to have this expertise. And on the other end, I'm hearing this like, oh, AI is everywhere. It's everything. It's in everything you're going to ever do. But it seems inaccessible. How as a common man can I use these technologies? If I run a small business here out of India, is there a SaaS product that's available? Are these AI going to become like a SaaS product which I can now off the market purchase a SaaS product which says, hey, here's a career guidance AI tool, and we can customize this much like how SAP and all these enterprise systems had come out, right? Where they would say, here's the base level technology, and we'll come in and make it specific to your use case. And is that how
Sure, sure.
all
Well,
pervasive?
Viva, let me throw an example out to you. Um, do you know how to build a car?
No, I don't have a car. Obviously, no, no,
I don't either. Do you know how to build a cell phone?
no, no.
Neither do I. However, do you know how to use a cell phone?
Hmm.
Do you know how to use a car? So that's where AI is. You don't need to know for most of us how to build it or even how it was built. You need to know how to use it, right? And we are coming to the place with AI now where it's becoming increasingly easier to use it. You have APIs. you have platforms, you have frameworks,
How
so
to
you
use,
can infuse it.
but you're saying how to use it as a consumer, right? But then the power and the money will stay in the hands of the corporations who are like it's the
Well, no, I don't necessarily see it that way. I mean, it's up to us as how we continue building the future on how this plays out. But let me give you another example. Um, Cell phones are controlled by a few corporations. You're right. But cell phones are used by thousands and thousands of small and medium businesses to further their how they do it. Like, think about people who are using it, cell phones, to sell goods or to deliver goods or to communicate, right? Like, the platforms by and large are controlled by large corporations, absolutely. But the use cases, there's thousands and thousands of use cases that have been built on top of those platforms. Those are not controlled by the corporations or by large corporations. So I think it's invariable that any industry that matures, if you look at history, if you look at human history, right, whether you look at oil and gas, or whether you look at agriculture, or whether you look at now AI, that the platforms will invariably get consolidated because you need um, interoperability, you need scale, you need things that only a large organization can do by and
so
large.
okay, so
But the use cases built on top of that,
on top.
those are democratized.
Okay, got that. So currently, the large sort of players in this space who own the proprietary technology would be the Googles and the Metas of the world. They largely are running the they is that is it them? They have largely the power?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It's unclear how the story will fully play itself because we're seeing it right now. We're in the, to use a baseball analogy here, we're in the second or third inning. There's
Okay,
7 more innings to go. Or use the cricket analogy, we're still in the early balling here. Like, there's a lot more wickets and balls to be played. Um, there are certainly big corporates that own a big chunk.
okay,
Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, etc. OpenAI, which is
or
um,
Microsoft, right?
yeah, Microsoft, OpenAI, etc. There are startups that are very well funded, and you may be familiar with some of these names like Anthropic,
Hmm.
Character.ai, and so on. But there's also thousands and thousands of other startups and small companies and old companies that are reinventing themselves. So it's not a winner takes all. Very rarely do we see winner takes all. Some markets, winner takes most. So you end up with 3 or 4 players who own a big chunk.
Hmm.
But I don't see a world, honestly, where everything will be owned by a few. Like, let me take healthcare as an example, since I focus on healthcare. Healthcare has very specific needs. You have personally identifiable information. You have here in the US a set of laws called HIPAA, which is around privacy. You have regulation. You have the trust, right? Trust among payers, providers, and patients. Like, let me play this as an example. Do you really want your healthcare data being held with the same people who hold your social media? I think most of us will say no, you
Hmm.
don't. Even if you're willing to give up on privacy for better efficiency, most of us don't want necessarily that. There is an opportunity here for companies to specialize themselves, right? You will have certain platforms that are multi-use, perhaps on the consumer side, especially on the consumer side, and maybe on the enterprise side. But if you look at specific industries and if you look at specific use cases, I cannot possibly see a world where somebody does everything. If you
Hmm.
do everything for everyone, you don't do anything for anyone,
Hmm.
right? So um, there's going to be chunks. It's going to be a lumpy world. It's going to be perhaps a oligopolistic world where a few control a lot, but not everything is controlled by those entities.
So I mean, it's
And
kind
we haven't even talked about the role of the government. We haven't even talked about the role of society in general. Like, this
let's
is a
move
very
to
complex topic.
let's move to that. So, we've talked a lot. So when you think about the future of work, what's going to shape the future? We pinned it down to like a few factors, right? So obviously technology was number one factor, and then there's social change, economic change, geopolitical change, sustainability as a driving force. So do you want to touch upon one or two other areas and explain how it's going to pan out in the health tech sector?
Uh, sure thing. Let me give you another example. We have a portfolio company called Signos. and they leverage a continuous glucose monitor. So these are little things you put on your arm or maybe in your stomach. Many folks who suffer from diabetes use them. But what this company saw is, let's actually help people lose weight. Because if I can help you understand what happens inside your body when you eat, drink, exercise, or sleep, if you can measure it, you can monitor it. And if you can monitor it, you can modify it. Like
Right.
most of us don't understand exactly what goes on when we eat a paratha or when we go and run for 10
So,
minutes, right? Like
so
we think that something happened, but we don't know exactly what happens. Uh,
monitor, modify. No, there were three.
Measure, monitor, modify.
Measure,
Correct.
monitor.
That's a framework
Lovely.
I have.
Lovely.
So if you can't measure it, you can't monitor it.
Got
You
it.
don't have accurate monitoring. And if you don't have accurate monitoring, you're shooting in the dark on what you should
Got
be
it.
doing, right?
Okay.
So what this company did is said, look, I'm going to repurpose these CGMs. Yes, they're very useful, obviously, for a medical use case, but let's actually help people lose weight. And obesity is classified as a disease in the US for now almost 10 years. Um, but I think all of us know this, that obesity is correlated with so many issues, with cardiovascular, with diabetes, etc. Being at a right weight is not the only way to be healthy, but it's a big factor in being healthy. Um, so these guys, that's what they did. They got hundreds of thousands of people signed up on their platform without doing any marketing. Now, of course, they do their marketing
So sorry,
because they were.
what factor are you talking about? What were you saying? What is the factor you've identified with this example?
So my factor with this is AI is helping you in this particular case to understand really the patterns that your own body has when you eat, drink, sleep, exercise, right?
Okay.
This is a use case for your personal health, for your personal well-being.
Hmm.
Think about the world before this company and before a few other companies like them. You might sign up for a weight loss program, or you might go do exercise. You might start trying to be healthy by eating healthier, but you don't know exactly what goes on for you. You don't get personalized advice. You're following general principles,
Is
right?
it an
But you
injectable
don't.
device? Do you have to inject it, or how? What is it? Or is it a patch, or what is it?
In this particular case, it's a very small device, like just just like about this size. It's like a patch. There is a needle. You put it on, a very small needle. You put it on yourself, and you forget about it. I've used it myself, and honestly, you just forget about it. It's not invasive. It's so invasive.
And then it gives
Uh,
you like it tracks your pattern as you sort of consume anything and tells you.
not only consume but also spend energy, right? You could be eating, drinking, exercising, sleeping, your day to day. You get to see what's happening really, really with your body.
Okay.
And that's actually my general insight here, my overall principle. What we have today is not healthcare. In the world, what we have today is sick care.
Hmm.
We're very good about taking care of you when you get sick. We patch you up, put a band-aid, send you home, and that's it. We're very bad at preventive,
Sure.
extremely poor at preventive healthcare. This is preventive healthcare.
And
Healthcare overall tends to
that's
be
what
very much
in
one
your
size fits
future
all,
is going to be
right?
more preventive, right? I'm hearing
Well, not
this
only
a lot
preventive,
more.
but also personalized. Because think about what healthcare is. Healthcare says, well, I've seen 1,000 people that tend to lose weight if they actually choose to eat the roti instead of the paratha, right? But I don't know the magnitude of the change for each of these people necessarily. And if I, Amit, am trying to make that decision, there's 1,000 other things in my body I'm just not aware, right? Like healthcare is very good at pattern matching, but it's a rough pattern matching. We live in a world right now where we operate based on guidelines, and those guidelines have been constructed with good reason based on large population sets. And we're very good at taking care of you when you get very sick. I would like a world where healthcare is a much smaller industry. Well, healthcare is, I would love a world where healthcare doesn't exist as an industry, honestly, because that means that we have been taking good care of ourselves and that it's personalized and we're taking actions. Instead of getting a heart attack, we've done all the right things to prevent the heart attack. So
Hmm.
I see a company like Signus being very much that kind of play where instead of you sounding an alarm bell 10 years from now and running into issues that you can't solve, let's take care of it right now. Let's prevent the artery blockage that will lead to arteriosclerosis and that will lead to the stroke. Let's prevent that. Let's
Okay.
actually live healthy.
Okay, so I love this example. Thank you for sharing. Preventive healthcare and very personalized. So, so what I was trying to ask you is, in addition to AI and technology, are there any other factors that you're seeing that are going to shape the future of work? Is there anything else you want to talk about before we move to the next question? It could be.
Oh God, there's so many others, Vibha. But I think we're increasing efficiencies, right? That's the world that we're living in. Um, One person can do more and more and more,
Mm,
which this has come up before. Okay, this has come up when the industrial revolution happened. People thought, okay, there's going to be machines replacing humans and nobody will have a job and we'll run out of food, and there were dire predictions in the 1800s and the 1900s, very dire predictions. There were Malthusian predictions around the doom of the world. That's not what happened.
mm,
We have produced more food today than ever before. We actually produce more than enough to feed every human being in the world. We have a problem of distribution. We have created new industries that we couldn't even imagine before. We've created more jobs. We have more prosperity across humanity than ever before. But that transition happened over a few generations, over a few decades. The agricultural revolution 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, was a similar revolution. It happened over hundreds of years. This third revolution, or fifth, some people call it the fifth revolution, is happening very quickly. It's happening in a lifetime. So for us to be able to be aware of how work is going to change and to be able to adapt of ourselves is more critical than ever. We do not have multiple generations to adopt. You and I need to adopt and
sure.
adapt.
Okay, so
So
let's talk a little bit about, now that you've pinned it down in such an abject manner, saying you and I do need to adopt. How are we going to
adopt and adapt.
adopt and adapt? Okay, so let's make these two the key words: adoption and adaptation. How is this going to happen? Let's talk about workspaces, right? How is the workspace going to say? I can see a beautiful office in your background. Is this office space
Oh,
going?
this is a fake background.
Is this office space going to exist 15 years from now? Do you think that the concept of an office is going to become obsolete? Do you think we're going to more hybrid, less hybrid? Like, where do you stand on this
Well,
fact?
this is the real office. It's a room in my home, and that by itself should probably answer one of a little bit of your question. Um, Not every professional will need an office. The type of work I do, I don't need an office, at least at the scale that I'm operating right now. I may want to have an office for other reasons, in case I want to host a lot of people in person, because not everything can be done virtually, or at least done as well virtually. Um, so let's say you're developing a hardware, you need people actually working on that piece of hardware. We don't have the technology yet to be able to do that virtually, or at least as well virtually. Let's talk about a surgery, right? In healthcare, we do have robots to do surgeries remotely, but we're not quite there yet in order to be able to do all of it virtually. Um, I'm sure you've heard this argument before, but for white collar professions at least, we have moved very definitely to a hybrid work mode. Um, in large corporates, at least, there's a propensity to do 3 and 2, maybe 3 days at an office, 2 days at home, or maybe the other way around. Um, but for a lot of perhaps especially smaller companies, it's not needed, and I do think that that will transform our cities. There's a lot of office space, or perhaps areas of a city that were designated as office space could be used in a different way, could be perhaps used as public spaces, could be used as residential spaces.
Could we use
um,
this data warehouses? If the whole world is going to be using so much data, it almost,
sure.
a large
Well,
amount of space is then going to start getting dedicated to data storing, because
true, although we're getting better and better at storing data, like we need less and less space to store more and more data. At some point we're going to run into physical limits, like
sure.
the laws of physics are going to be a challenge. We're not there yet. um, but there are definitely pros and cons to this new reality, right? One of the pros is imagine if you need to take care of people at home, whether they're children or elderly. Um, Imagine if you don't want to put yourself through an hour commute a day back and forth, right? The traffic in most big cities is terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not just Bombay being terrible. Here, the Bay Area is also terrible,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Like whether it's a developed country or an emerging country, we have terrible traffics in so many different places. So I do think that the efficiency we get from hybrid work is in many ways positive. The flip side of this is not every workplace can go hybrid.
Mm.
Like you cannot, there's many professions where you will still very much need a physical presence. Like let's talk about plumbing. The plumber has to come to your place to fix the plumbing. We don't live in a world yet where that work can be done remotely. I don't foresee that world anytime soon, by the way. Um,
But
so
what can show up in
it will accentuate the differences in terms of professions.
they could have a machine. They could have a machine in every building, a robot who will just ring the doorbell, show up at the house, fix my plumbing, and
We
leave.
could, we could. I don't foresee that world anytime soon, but it could. And the reason I don't foresee that world anytime soon is because that machine needs to be able to understand, diagnose the problem really well, and there's always little things that happen that are not quite 100% correct. So what I expect in a more near future is that yes, there might be a machine. The machine does go in, but it's being operated by a human who is
Human.
sitting somewhere else
Yes,
or
exactly.
but being perhaps approved by a human. That I can foresee. That I
Mm.
can absolutely see happening
Okay.
for plumbing, for healthcare, for
So,
food, for making food, right? I could see a robot making food, perhaps guided by a human being, eventually maybe guided less and less by a human being. I could see all of that happening, but I think we're what AI is really powerful right now is coming up with very specific use cases and helping those very specific use cases. We are very far from general AI, meaning an intelligence that can do everything, doesn't need that much hand holding. I fall under the school of thought that we're far from that singularity. There are some folks you will talk to that believe that that moment is much closer.
mm,
I don't see that moment being close. I
okay.
think what will happen is we're going to build progress in lumps, right? It's punctuated evolution.
Mm.
There's going to be leaps, and then there's going to be periods where it's a little bit more like a
So
valley or
what
maybe
about
stable, and then there's going to be other peaks.
human aided, right? You think there is going to be a human aid to machines in your books, yeah, in the
In
short.
some cases, we may be able to automate everything. In some cases, we won't be able to automate anything. Most things are going to be automated to different degrees,
Term.
most of them with some kind of human involvement, perhaps less human involvement because the human is more efficient.
Okay, okay. And if this is the world we're going to potentially inhabit, what kind of challenges are you seeing coming up? Like you spoke about the examples in in with that device and it's mapping everything and all these fabulous examples you gave, but where could they go wrong? Like what are the challenges in implementation and execution here?
Well, let's take self-driving cars, which is a topic dear and near to my heart. I've invested in that field. I still look into that field, and we have invested through Tao in a few robots to automate a kitchen and to make smoothies. But let's take the world of self-driving. Let's look at a world where truly cars are fully automated. It's called L5, L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. We are not in an L5 world. We live in an L3/L4 world. L3 meaning it's automated to a certain degree where you provide assistance to the driver, and L4 where it can actually do most things by itself, perhaps on a highway. That's what a Tesla is. Um, but let's say we get to an L5 world. Well, then every single human being who makes a living by driving a car is out of a job.
Hmm.
Hundreds of thousands, millions of taxi drivers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, Grab drivers, they don't have a job, right? Um, if we do that transition very quickly, then our society and our economy will have to absorb those people too quickly. So any government, any society that's looking at that transition needs to make sure that the rate at which we're creating other industries is fast enough. The rate at which we're opening up new jobs is fast enough to match the rate at which those jobs are going away.
Hmm.
Um, And I'll use a historical example. When we moved from horses to cars, which from at least developed countries happened just about 150 to 100 years ago, it took us about 50 years to make the transition. If you walked in the Bay Area where I live in 1883, there were horses running around. If you walked in 1933, there might have been a horse here and there, but it was primarily cars, right? That transition happened over 50 years. It happened to in different timelines at different parts of the world. I grew up in Brazil and I still see horses, tangas, horses and carts in some places, but by and large, I see cars. So if we're going to move from human-driven cars to self-driving cars, there's going to be a transition period. We might have roads that are being shared. Maybe there's specific lanes that are being used by self-driving and the others are being used by human driving. And then eventually we expand the self-driving lane completely to the point that driving in the future becomes a hobby. It's just like riding a horse today. Yes, there are people who ride a horse for work. They have to. But for most of us, if we're riding a horse, we're riding it for fun.
So if we can just go stick to the healthcare, what you were, the examples you were sharing, and just talk a little bit about the challenges you're seeing in health tech, going forward. We'll just stick to that because the examples you shared were fascinating. What could go wrong? What could go wrong in
In
health?
healthcare specifically, look, everything that could go wrong, uh, at some point might actually go wrong. But my biggest worry about healthcare is um, is more on the adoption side rather than the adaptation side, because healthcare is um, by design slower, right? A physician is not thinking necessarily, let me use this technology because it might do something. They they will use the technology because I've made sure that it will not do any harm.
Mhm.
And now I will trust that it will do good. An entrepreneur thinks the other way. An entrepreneur thinks, let me use this technology, build this technology because it might do good. A
Sure,
physician is saying, I'll do it once I make sure that it can do no harm,
correct.
right? And that's the way it should be, honestly. Like, I don't want to be operated by a robot just because it might have a better outcome, but
Sure.
there's a 99% chance that it might lead to a worse outcome, right? So the level of rigor in healthcare is higher, the level of regulation in healthcare is higher, the level of resistance and time for adoption is higher. The key thing for me for adoption in healthcare is that it fits in with the workflow of the nurses, of the physicians, of the PAs, the physician assistants. It needs to be something that the people who are in medicine, the providers, are able to use easily. If
Mm.
you give the most amazing piece of technology to somebody who's overworked, who is dealing with life and death, who is
I mean, also
stressed out,
the technology
if you give them a piece of technology that's hard to use, that doesn't fit into what they have to do, which adds to their work, they're just not going to use it.
ease of use of technology is was one of the challenges. Governance, it seems like there's a lot of regulation that could come in and completely stomp down on this sort of innovation, right? The government just says, oh, there were like two incidents with this device and now we're going to just ban these devices from being sold over the counter or at any of these hospitals or whatever. Then that's it, right? So it doesn't
Well, yes and no. You're talking about devices. There's also drugs, and there's also purely digital innovation. And I'm going to use the perspective of the U.S., the FDA. The FDA has become better and better at creating regulatory frameworks around digital innovation. In the last 10 years, and this is part of the thesis behind Tau Ventures, but in the last 10 years, we have seen um, the rate at which that innovation gets developed and approved and actually adopted becoming better and better. So I'm optimistic, actually. Um, just to use a data point, we had one or two purely software solutions that were approved for many years, and now it's exploded. We're talking about hundreds,
okay.
hundreds. I think last year there were 500 approvals, and that's great. That means that we have gotten more and more comfortable. We know how to actually look at a new innovation and say, okay, it meets all the checks. Let's release it. You cannot approve a piece of software that will help you do perhaps a diagnosis the same way that you would approve a pacemaker that goes inside your body. Those are two different things. they need to be looked upon differently.
Got it. Okay, cool. But you're seeing a generally favorable regulatory environment, you're saying.
There's always hiccups. Human evolution is 3 steps forward, 2 steps backwards,
Okay.
right? That's always the story of humanity.
Got
But when it comes to very specifically healthcare, AI, and what the future holds, I'm optimistic that we're actually now walking 3 steps ahead and sometimes 2 steps backwards, but the net of it is 1 step ahead. And
it.
sometimes it's actually only 1 step backwards. So I'm actually optimistic on
Okay.
that one particular aspect of how we're building the future.
Okay, okay, all right. And I like the two cornerstones you use about adoption and adaptation. To be able to do this successfully, what are the kind of skills we need across student population and the labor population, right? How, you were talking about if the ease of use isn't there, the nurses and doctors are not going to use, the stakeholders aren't going to use these products. So what kind of skilling do we need to do amongst our current workforce, not in school or college anymore? And what should we be doing with factions in school and universities right now? How do you
Oh
skill?
boy, that's a big question. But Vibha, I'm of the school of thought that the most useful skill that we learn in school is not knowledge, it's the ability to learn and unlearn.
Mm.
It's the ability to collaborate and cooperate. It's the ability to keep ourselves up to date. Um, because look, if I wanted to gain knowledge, I can read a Wikipedia page.
Mm.
If I wanted to get 900 case studies, I didn't need to pay mountain loads of money and go to HBS. I could have just picked up those case studies and actually read them, right? But the ability to ingest that data, to use the AI framework here, the ability to debate, the ability to learn, the ability to course correct, the ability to um, think at a problem from a different lens, like those are the skill sets that my schooling has taught me and that I hope I continue perfecting them. 99% of the knowledge that I've learned in my
So I'm sorry,
16, 18 years of schooling
maybe I didn't
gets
frame it
outdated.
correctly. If you to upskill a current labor force and a current school force, what skills, given your conjecture on the future, what skills do you think are necessary today?
Be open-minded. I'm perhaps speaking philosophically, but it's realizing that okay, what you're learning today will get outdated,
Mhm.
potentially very fast.
Okay.
But being able to continue being open-minded about it and learn and unlearn and question, and if you see another way of doing it, being willing to adopt it. But if you want something very practical, very specific, I think basic computer science is as important as learning a language or learning mathematics or learning the laws of physics. I think all of us need to be computer literate to a certain degree. Computer literate doesn't mean that you're going to become a computer scientist. It means that you're able to understand technology, you're able to appreciate technology, you're able to use technology.
Okay. So
I
so
don't need to be a poet, right? But I need to be able to speak a language. I need to be able to understand language. The same analogy I have here. I don't need to be a world class computer scientist, but I need to be computer literate or technology literate.
Okay, that was very beautifully. I love that poetry analogy. So you're saying tech literacy, digital literacy, computer literacy for all. Everyone should
For
have.
everyone, for every human being on the planet.
Okay, so for in terms of hard skills, you're saying digital computer literacy, and in terms of soft skills, you said curiosity, ability to question, ability to be humble, knowing that the world I live in today is not going to look like this. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can give you a personal story. 20 years ago, when I got my first cell phone, I was resisting it. I was saying, like, I don't want everybody to be able to call me at any given time, and I don't need to call anybody all the time. And why do I need a cell phone? It feels like an electronic leash.
Okay, sure.
I stand corrected. It was the wrong way of thinking based on the parameters I knew at the time, because technology has evolved so much more since then that the pros of having a cell phone far outweigh, to me at least, the cons.
Sure. Okay, cool. So as we we've spoken about so many different factors and the changes coming, etc. What sort of jobs are you seeing? You broadly said, like, laborious everyday jobs will get redundant. Um, could you pin down specific careers that you feel will emerge, like new career segments, new jobs that will come up in the economy that potentially don't even exist today?
Um, so yes, there's so many other industries that are popping up. Um, just to use perhaps a very basic example, if we're infusing AI into our industries, we need to, we're building jobs for people to actually embed that AI to be able to service that AI, right? Like if you have a washing machine that is now smarter, the guy who was building the washing machine needs to now understand the intelligence side of it too in order to be able to fix it. Or maybe eventually you create a washing machine that can fix itself, but that itself creates another job, right? Creating the thing that will be able to fix itself. So at a very least, we're going to create all these new jobs.
Okay, so the
To
guy who's
your point,
going to build the AI, so the actual scientist who builds the AI, then the company that takes this AI and embeds it into their everyday equipment would be another category, and then potentially someone who services this newly sort of upgraded machine version. So that's another category. You're saying that we
correct, correct, and correct. Now, you might be thinking 10 steps ahead and going, what happens in a world where you build machines that can fix themselves, right?
sure.
Intelligence that is what is basically general AI, right? Uh,
So I don't
AGI.
okay.
That's far. That's
Any,
far.
any other categories, any other jobs popping up in your head where you're like, hey man, I can see like, I don't know, any other careers that are popping up in your head right now? Not if it's even if it's not in the health tech space, but just generally anything futuristic.
Well, sure. We didn't talk at all about this, Vibha, but it's a whole another topic, maybe for another conversation. But um, the thing that worries me the most about the world is climate tech. Climate. Um, I think that's an existential problem for us. The planet will be fine. We might not be fine, right? The planet will survive us. So there's a whole set of jobs to be created on new ways of using our resources, on distributing our resources, like vertical farming. Think about solar panels. Like solar efficiency is now at a place where it's on par, if not cheaper, than electricity overall. It varies based on where you are, but I say solarify the whole world. Let's move away from fossil fuels. Let's actually do renewable energy. Let's produce food and distribute it in an equitable way. These are all jobs. There's going to be tons of jobs created there. I'm not talking nonprofit and government. I'm
Mm,
talking about real commercial enterprises.
mm,
Like I'm talking about the next $1 trillion company is maybe an energy company that is 100% renewable energy company. Right?
mm.
Like imagine a world where, and imagine if it frees us up to do research and figure out nuclear fusion, a world of prosperity. And then we can produce spaceships powered by those nuclear fusions and we go out into the stars, right? Like that's the world that I want.
Sure.
Um, it may not happen in my lifetime, but I'm hoping to be able to contribute towards it.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you. That was very helpful. Last question, and then we'll close this. As a closing question, I always ask people like, is this future looking, is there a gloom scenario you're seeing where you're like, look,
Absolutely, there is.
so what's your gloom scenario and what's your boom scenario?
So, by many metrics, we are living in a more unequal world right now. If you look at Gini, which is the coefficient for uh, how much money is concentrated at different
Sure, yeah.
levels of society, we are going through a more unequal world, and this has happened before. Um, when the Industrial Revolution happened, it created a whole bunch of wealth, and it created all those stories from Charles Dickens, right?
And you're saying
Um,
with AI, the gap could further widen, and with more.
yes, yes, but it's happening quicker, and in my mind, it's not a question of it will, it is creating that world. What needs to happen is for us as a society, as a government, to be able to regulate this, to be able to create structures and frameworks so that we're able to distribute this wealth more equitably. I'm not saying give away money, by the way. I'm not talking about that. There may be some measure of it, but I'm talking about really guiding progress in such a way that it's more distributed. When the Industrial Revolution happened, the same thing happened, but we created minimum wage. We created regulation around working hours. We broke up monopolies. We did a whole bunch of things in about 50 years. We got to do the same here now with AI. We got to do it in a smart way. We got to do it in a quick way. And I don't have complete faith that as societies, we are electing leaders that are informed enough to do it. So we fall under the risk of populism, of demagogues, of revolutions. We will fall under the risk of destabilizing our societies. That is a real danger. It's a real present danger. We're seeing signs of it all over the world. And effectively, what I'm saying is that
Why are
we
you?
might
Why
make
is
it
it?
worse before we make it better.
Why is this going to happen? Is it because this? Is it again the oligopoly effect? Is it going to be a few people, a few corporations holding most of this technology and power in their hands? Like what is it that's leading to your gloom scenario?
Um, there's not one reality. There's many realities, Vibha, but I think that um, if it's concentration of power and resources at the end of the day, it may not be corporates. Um, a lot of it is corporates, but not all of it, because when you have people who are disaffected, people who are getting left behind, there will be counter revolutions to that, right? Like you create a revolution, you create prosperity, but you don't give that prosperity to everyone. There's a backlash. And that backlash can take many different forms. One way that takes a backlash is people elect leaders who speak to them, who basically make the problem even worse rather than fixing it.
What are you defining as prosperity in your version of the future?
Wealth. We're creating wealth. We have more wealth in the world now than ever before, but we are not distributing that wealth necessarily equitably.
Okay. It's wealth generated by tech. Like what are you?
Well, wealth is generated by economic activity, and tech really powers that economic activity to a bigger and bigger degree. But we have, you and I, if I live lives right now that 100 years ago, only the richest of the rich could even dream of. And I argue we actually live better lives than them. We have better healthcare, we have better access to information, we have better knowledge. Like we're building wealth now at a degree that we have never built before.
Okay,
The
okay.
challenge is we need to make sure that that wealth doesn't end up in the hands of just a few, that it ends up being distributed more equally. And once again, I'm not talking about handoffs. I'm really not talking about that. I'm talking about truly, truly reforming our societies, of our structures, of our economies, of our politics to a way where this progress is more equitable.
Amazing. Okay.
We have done this before.
Okay.
This is not, yeah.
It's a beautiful thought. It's a beautiful thought to end this conversation on. I'm going to take that thought and hope and pray on this and chant about this because it's a lovely thought to leave the conversation on. I truly hope your version of the future with more equitable distribution becomes a reality. Amit, thank you so much for doing this. Absolute honor and
Amen.
pleasure to you. Brains buzzing with all the great ideas you've been throwing out for the past hour or so. Thank you so much for your contribution. This is going to be fabulous. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me, Vibha. And excited and honored to be part of the story, the conversation. And my last comment is we all have a responsibility towards building the future. It's not somebody else's. It's all ours, right? We have individual responsibilities.
Great. Awesome. All right. I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Talk to you soon.